Super Bowl to me, I look at certain factors, I think, a little bit differently than most people do. And I'll
What
share
are, what are some of
later.
those? Yeah.
Yeah, and just for the record, as I told you when I sat down, I'm here for two reasons. Number one, I want to support Las Vegas, and I want to support what we're doing here, hosting the Super Bowl. Second of all, I made a commitment to the publisher when I did this book to do some of these interviews. This will be my last one, just for the record. Unless I do something, with an app or something, I'll go back into my little cocoon, and this will be it. But I'm really happy to be here today, and I'm happy to share my insight with you. To me, when you look at this game, I'll kind of sum up the general parts of it first. I mean, Kansas City's got by far the best quarterback. I don't think anybody would even question that. The coaching staffs, Kansas City has the overall best coaching staff. I don't think anybody would even question that. You could give Kyle Shanahan the benefit of the doubt and say he and Andy Reid are close to equal, or maybe they're equal. But the defensive coordinators is comparing night to day. There's no comparison. You got a first-year defensive coordinator who, frankly, has done a mediocre job. Kickers, not even close. Kansas City's got one of the best kickers in the entire NFL. San Francisco's got a real shaky rookie. And then overall, Kansas City's got by far, in my opinion, the best defense. Now, I'm not saying that San Francisco doesn't have the capability, but unfortunately, having the capability and being able to bring it is two different things. They haven't brought it all year. So I don't expect them to bring it this game. And now when you look at San Francisco, the other side of the ball, outside of the quarterback, offensively, they're a much stronger team than Kansas City. They got a better offensive line. There's positives there. But at the end of the day, quarterbacks are the most important thing in handicapping any football game. Defense. That's the second most important thing for my money. And kickers, okay? Now, Brock Purdy, he's performed on some fairly big stages, okay? This is a Super Bowl, man. You look at Patrick Mahomes in his first Super Bowl. He wasn't great. And I don't expect Brock Purdy's going to be great either. And then on top of that, I don't like to use real comparisons in games because, a lot of people, they overvalue those things. But if you remember when Baltimore played them at San Francisco this year, you remember what that Baltimore defense did to him?
Yeah, 4
Kansas
sacks.
City's defense is not quite as good, but I kind of expect, a little bit of the same thing there. So I'm going to bet on Kansas City. It's not going to be the biggest bet I ever made. It's going to be a small bet. Small bet for me is, somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million on the Super Bowl. But that's what I'm going to do. They made the line in the game 2. It's up to 2.5 in some places. I make Kansas City. I think Kansas City should be a 2-point favorite, 2.5. So I've got the other side favorite. And although it's a big differential point-wise, the reason I'm only making a small bet is because the importance of those numbers. Okay, there's like a 4.5 point differential. And if it were to be around numbers like 3 and 7, I would be making a monster bet, because 1 and 2 are really the odds of landing on 1 is 2.75% of the time. The odds of landing on 2 is 2.5% of the time. So these are what we handicappers call kind of semi-dead numbers. So and when you cross 0, you lose 1. So you take 2 from one side to 2 to the other side. You really got a 3-point differential by the time you subtract 1. And then, like I said, you take the values and you add them up, it gets to about a 6% value as far as I'm concerned. So it qualifies for a small bet. The thing also that I'm going to be looking for is this game's going to be 2.5. There's already 2.5s around in the game. And if I could buy 3 at +3, +3 at minus up to $1.32 is the same thing as taking 2.5 at 11 to 10. But in this game here, I think it's going to be a tight game. I think it could easily come down to a field goal. And if I can buy 3 plus or minus up to $1.32, no more than $1.32. If it's any more than $1.32, I'm taking 2.5. But anyway, there's a lot of 2.5 out there now that's like minus 0.2. 2.5 minus 0.2 is, that's almost like 2 3/4 points. So the main thing in a Super Bowl, you got to shop around. There's a lot of numbers out there, and you got to get the best price, because even though it only falls on 2.5% of the time. Okay, 1 out of every 40 games, that's going to fall on 2. Okay, and if you're lazy and you take 2 and there's 2.5 out there, you're going to feel like a sap. Or if you lay 2.5 and you could lay 2, you're going to feel like a sap. So shopping around and making sure, that's what in the book, when I wrote about value, that's how you get value. Okay, because there's a lot of places out there to shop. Just don't, if you got one place and you're relying upon 1 or 2 places, frankly, you're making a huge mistake. You're a sucker, really. You got to shop around. You got to get the best price. And money lines too. The money line equivalent, a 2.5-point line at 11 to 10. The money line equivalent of that is if you were to take $1.13.04, say this $1 plus $1.13 is the equivalent of taking 2.5 points minus 11 to 10. Okay, so anything better than $1.13 on a money line is better than taking 2.5 points. So if you could take $1.18 on the money line, it's like taking 2.5 minus 0.5. Okay, so those are some of the things that I think that can really help. Because a lot of people, they don't know how to compare what a money line is to a point spread. And in the book, that's the reason I wrote the book, and that's the reason I put those charts in there. They're easy for the average bettor, people who doesn't know anything at all about betting. You can go in there and you can see how the various numbers compare to a money line, and you should bet on the one that's the best value for you. Okay, if you can take, $1.20 on the money line, that's almost like taking 2 7/8 points. So those are some of the things that I think are really important. But at the end of the day, I think Kansas City's going to win this ball game. It could go either way. I mean, you got games that are this close. You got 2 great teams, but when it comes down to it, I want Patrick Mahomes going for me. I want my kicker going for me. And the reason Kansas City won that game last week is their coaching staff was a lot better prepared than Baltimore's was. They won that game in the first quarter and a half. They came out, they had a better offensive game plan, they had a better defensive game plan. Once Baltimore adjusted to their defense, Kansas City never scored for 2.5 quarters, okay? But it was too late because, Baltimore, the stage was just too big for Lamar Jackson. He choked. I mean, that's just really what it boiled down to. And then you had some penalties in that game that were just completely uncharacteristic of a championship team. I mean, there were some of the just some of the dumbest penalties I've ever seen.
Yeah. No, it's great. Amazing stuff, Billy. Yeah. Anything on the total? Any opinion on that?
I made the total number right where they have the total number, so I couldn't tell you. I'll have an opinion one way or the other on either side.
Going back to the spread, so 2.5, or if you could get what number on the money line on the Chiefs would you recommend?
Well, 2.5 at 11 to 10. The money line plus $1.13.04 is the same thing as taking 2.5 minus 11 to 10. So anything better than $1.13 is better than 2.5 at 11 to 10.
Yeah.
But I think there's 2.5s out there you can lay $1.05 around. There's all kinds of options out there. There's different money line prices.
Yeah.
There's different lines on the game. In-game betting too. You discussed that a little bit. And in-game betting, I think there's really some keys here for people to be looking for in in-game betting. I think the keys with San Francisco, if San Francisco were to lose Deebo Samuels or they were to lose McCaffrey, either one, I think 25 to 30% of their offense is gone. I've never seen 2 backs or 2 players that basically complement each other as they do. With Deebo Samuels in there, McCaffrey's a lot more effective. With Deebo Samuels out of there, their offense isn't nearly the offense. It becomes a lot more one-dimensional, and it puts a lot more pressure on Purdy to pass the ball. If Frisco gets put in a position where they got to count on Brock Purdy to pass this ball, they're in a lot of trouble.